on the face of it, it seems that the heyday of the Mercedes-Benz Coupé is over. If you had to list the more memorable ones, they'd include things like the 300 SL, or the 1960s Pagoda Top, or even the 1980s SL. But after that, they're all a little bit forgettable. But it seems over the last few years that Mercedes-Benz are quite keen to remind people of their coupe prowess by going on a bit of a design rampage. Starting with the SLS back in 2010, Mercedes-Benz have produced a succession of really nice examples, including the AMG GT and the new S-Class Coupé. Even applying their particular design ideas to bigger, non-traditional coupe cars like the GLE hasn't put a dent in the impression that when it comes to that particular body style, they do it better than most. And now they have themselves this, the C-Class Coupé. Up front it's all fairly familiar, fairly uninteresting, but as you move towards the back it gets a little bit more interesting, a little bit more exciting. And that means this car gets a lot more attention. It is a really beautiful car, this. In the same way that some of those older coupes make you do a double take, the new C-Class model does exactly the same. Clean lines, great proportions, and an elegant execution combine to create a shape that is most certainly worth taking a second look at. Up until I saw this car, I would have said the best looking option in this class is the Audi A5. Now, and even with the recently released brand new A5, I'm not so sure. When we finally get our hands on that car, it's going to be a very interesting comparison because the A5 seems to have taken a more tech-heavy approach inside and outside, where the C-Class Coupé is a little bit more curvy, a little bit more sexy. And that means on the inside there's a bigger focus on luxury and a comfortable setup, although it's not exactly short on tech either. Everything in here is instantly recognizable as Mercedes-Benz. There aren't any surprises when it comes to the feel or the materials or the toys. Our test car is crammed with a long list of options that include electric heated and ventilated seats, head-up display and keyless operation. The typical gloss black and satin chrome finishes are given an extra edge of luxury thanks to the cream-colored leather. Not entirely practical over time, I'm sure, but it gives the car a touch of exclusivity. Rear space is good and bad. There's enough legroom, but taller than average passengers will have to contend with the sloping roofline interfering with their headroom. But as the driver, you don't really care about rear headroom. And that's because as a coupe driver, you are a little bit selfish because, let's be honest, this car offers just about everything that the sedan does, but just in a better looking package. And that by default makes you look better, and so you feel better. So who cares about people in the back? The C-Class Coupé engine lineup consists of 4 petrol engines and 1 diesel. We're driving the C300, a 2-litre turbo with 180 kilowatts and 370 newton meters. Although Mercedes-Benz claims a fuel consumption figure of just 6.3 litres per 100 k's, we haven't seen much less than almost double that figure in our time with the car. Even with a lot of effort, matching their figure is going to be a tough job. You might think that's because it offers phenomenal power and an absolutely involving drive that means you can't help but tackle every route with sheer enthusiasm. But that's not really the case. In fact, the C300 is fairly mild-mannered. That's not to say it's not capable, it's just not very encouraging. Power delivery is decent and there always seems to be enough power when you need it. The steering and the chassis are similarly well sorted, with decent feel through the steering wheel and a ride setup that has a good balance between mild sportiness and good comfort. If you're looking for better involvement, Sport Plus mode adds more urgent responses. If there is a weak link in this car's makeup, it's the gearbox. The 7G Tronic unit sends power to the rear wheels, and whether you let it do its own thing or use the pedals, it is a little bit slow to respond, and the shifts themselves aren't that quick. The whole thing feels fairly antiquated. And that's not because automatic gearbox technology isn't as good as, say, dual clutch technology, because BMW and Jaguar have proven that you can have very good automatic gearboxes. But Mercedes-Benz are definitely starting to lag in that department. And to make matters worse, it's the only option with this motor. Lesser models get a manual, and the 9-speed auto is only available with the C450 4MATIC. There's also the slight concern that this 2-litre motor can be a little loud at times. It wouldn't sound as bad if it made a decent noise, but about the best way I can describe it is to say that it sounds like a typical 4-cylinder motor that's been pushed beyond its comfort zone. Those two elements do detract from the C300's image of smooth refinement, but thankfully they're not enough to tarnish it completely. It is still a very good drive with typical C-Class comfort, and on top of that it's wrapped up in some spectacular looking packaging. The C300 motor puts out a decent 180 kilowatts and 370 newton meters, and the well-sorted ride setup and steering offer a drive that's more about ease of use rather than outright performance. The gearbox detracts somewhat from the overall refinement, but the excellent interior, top tech and brilliant styling more than make up for that particular shortcoming.